Hi guys, welcome to Salesforce Troop. This is the part 17 of our Lightning Web Component series, and today's topic is how to refresh component data without page refresh in Lightning Web Component. And let's move on to agenda. So what we're gonna learn in today's video is first we'll see how to fetch the data in LWC. Then we'll see how to create a data table with inline editing. After that, we'll see how to update record using uiRecordApi. And after that, we'll see how to refresh record without page refresh. And then we'll see end-to-end demo. So I don't have today any more slides. So we'll go directly to our code and see this. So I am in my VS Code. To start with, we'll first create an Apex class. So let's see what all names we have. Okay, so to create a new Apex class from where we're gonna fetch our data, so press Ctrl Shift P or Command Palette and select Create Apex Class. Enter, and then you can give that this class name as Refresh Contact Controller. So I have given this Refresh Contact Controller as my class name. Enter and select the default directory. So in this class, we just gonna write a basic method that will fetch the details, and we're gonna show that details on our data table. So, so let's create the method. I'll make it public static as it gonna return the list of contact. I'm using contact records. On my method name is get contact list. And this will run the basic query. This will say select ID, first name, last name, and email. We'll go with only basic three. From contact object, and just let's make the limit to 10. And as we're gonna use this class in the Lightning Web component, so it's important to add the decorator or enable. And apart from that, we can add it a cacheable true as well, because we are not doing any DML operation here, so it's good to add this cacheable true. So make sure you are adding the comma here, and our class is ready. So right click and deploy this class to the org, and in meantime we'll create the lightning web component. Again, go to the command palette, Control Shift P, and select create lightning web component. I'll give the component name as refresh demo LWC and hit enter. I'll take the default path. I'll close this folder classes, and our command is still running. So now I'll go back quickly to our slide and we'll follow the same path. So first we'll fetch the data in LWC. I'll go back, and now my component is ready here, refresh demo LWC. And the first thing, I'll add the targets so that my component should be visible in the pages. As I did in my previous videos, I'll add all the targets, app page, record page, and home page, but based on your need, you can add that. I'll change is exposed to true so that this component should be visible in our builder. Now let's go to our LWC JS controller, and in that, first thing we are going to call the method. So we'll say import get contact list, or I can copy it, that's better. My method name is get contact list from at the rate Salesforce slash apex slash method name slash class name is refresh contact controller, and get contact list is the method name. So now we import the method to our lightning component, and we know to fetch the data we can use wire adapter, and to use the wire adapter we just need to use at the rate wire and the method name, and the property of, you can use the wire as a property or as a function. Right now from the data I don't have to manipulate anything, so I'll go with the property. So I'll give the property name as contact, and now we are good with fetching the data. So let's go and add something in our HTML as well. And in HTML I'll create the lightning card quickly. Lightning card title is refresh text demo. I can give icon name as well. Custom any icon you can give, whichever you like. And apart from that, yeah, let's keep it simple for time being, and we can do here, we can print it contacts dot length, contact is available, but it will throw an error, so I'll leave it as it is for time being. And to check this, I can write a getter actually. Is contact available, and data getter, and that will return if this dot contact and this dot contact dot length is greater than 0, then yes, otherwise no. And within this getter we can console this data as well. I entered in the console because this getter will call every time the data change, so that's why I added here. I can say json.string if I, now let's deploy this component. So till now we have just imported the method from the contact controller to our LWC. We use that method in the wire service, and once the response comes, it comes to the contact, and it will come in the form of contact.data or contact.error. So we are checking if contact.data.length. First we'll check contact.length is there. If yes, then check the length. So it's still deploying. Let me zoom my code little bit. I guess it's pretty small. Now this is the right font. I guess that will be visible. So this is my class and this is my JS file. So now the component is deployed. Let's go to our org. I already in my app. This is the page we created in the last video where we learned about Apex method, wire as a property, wire as a function, and imperative method. So here only I'll edit the page. I'll move my component here. So let's search our component name, that is refresh. So here is our component. Let's drag it to the canvas to the top. Let's save and go back to the page. So if data is coming, it means we have yes on the screen. If there is no data, then no. Let's see whether we able to fetch the data successfully or not. So now you can see yes is coming on the screen. Let's go to debugger quickly. Right click and select inspect. I'll check in the console as well. So here in the console you can see that our data is printing the contacts that I have in my org. So we successfully able to fetch the data. Let's go to the VS Code now. Here you can use it as a function as well if you want, but I'm fine with contact because here I am not manipulating anything with the data. So the by property is easy. So now the second task is how to create a data table with inline editing. So let's go to VS Code and now we'll create the lightning data table. So first I'll go to my card. I'll remove this. I just added this just to make sure our data is coming. And let's add some class that will add some margin around our data table. And we'll create the lightning data table that is given by Salesforce only. And that data table has some properties. First one is key field. That should be a unique ID. So I'll keep it as an ID only. If there are multiple data table on the same screen, make it unique. Then we have a data. Data is coming from contact.data. That we have seen contact is our property name. Apart from that, we will have some columns. That is the column headings. Will give the name for time being as a columns only. In a while we'll see what is column. And then when you edit something, there should be a save. So there is a property called save, and that will call the method. So I'll give this name handle save. Apart from that, in editing you can edit multiple fields at a time, and for that you need to store the values. So there is an attribute that stores the value that the fields that you have edited. So that is the draft values, and we'll say a property that binds to it that keep keep an eye what all values or what all fields we have edited. uh, Values, and we'll close our lightning table. So in lightning table we define the key field that make the lightning table unique. Then we have a data that we need to render on the table. Then we have a column based on which we'll give the heading. On save, when you edit the field, this handle will take care what to do on click of save. Then there is a data values. Like in a table, you updated four fields or four four fields in a column. Then this data will draft values will take care of that. It should be draft values, not the data values. Draft values. So we are storing those in the draft values. Now let's go back to our controller and start creating these fields. So first I'll say we'll create the columns. So columns is a static thing. So I'll just create a const here, const columns. And as we are fetching only three fields, first name, last name and email. So we'll create columns for three. So column format is label, first name. Label is the text that gonna visible on the table header, and field name is the API name, you can say. So field and that name is coming from our Apex. Its first name. Apart from that, there is a property called editable that makes sure whether you want this field to be editable or not. So I want my first name to be editable. Similarly, I can copy paste this twice, and I change this first name to last name, and my property name that is coming from Apex is last name, and I want the last name to be editable. Third field that we are calling is email, and the email is coming with the name email. Field name, I want this not to be editable, so if you not define it will not be editable. And email is a special type, so you can type the email. And in other cases, if you will not define, by default it take it as a text. So if you have URL, you need to define it as a URL. Okay, so we define our column, and let's create some private properties. So first private property is columns, and map these columns to that columns. And columns we already defined here, so these columns will map here. Then we have a handle save. So let's create a method. We don't need this getter anymore, so we can remove this. We create a method handle save that will give us an event, and we'll just print this event for time being. Console.log event.detail.draft values. Not do anything right now, we'll keep it as it is. Apart from that, what else we are using in handle save draft values? So we need to define draft values as well. So draft value property, we can make it as an empty array. So once the data comes, contact will get the data, and on the screen the data should load here, but for the first load data will not be there. So let's add the if condition. Template if true, contact dot data is available, then only load the data table. So once the contact dot data has some data, then only this data table will be loaded on the screen, and we are good with our second task of creating the lightning data table inline editing. So let's deploy this component to the org. So now the component has been deployed. Let's go back to the org and let's refresh the page. So now you can see that I can close my debugger. So now you can see that we have our data table. So in my org, I only have five contacts, so it's showing the five contacts, and we given the label as first name, last name, and email. So label is coming like this. Then we said only first name and last name should be editable. So if I hover here, you can see only the editable symbol is coming to first name, last name, not to the email, because we didn't mention editable to email. And now if I change something there to Nick and I click outside, you can see our save button is there. Similarly, if I add something Martin to Martin1, so these are highlighting as a draft value. These values gonna save as a draft value. And if I open my debugger, on click of save, it should show me what all are under the default values, under the draft values. So let's click save. So it gave me the two records, and the two records are the same that we have edited. One is the first name, that is Nick, and another is the last name, that is Martin1, with their record IDs. So now our second task is also completed, how to create a data table with inline editing. Now let's go to our third task, in which we'll update the record using uiRecordApi. And for updating, we're not going to use any Apex. We just use the uiRecordApi. Let's go to our VS Code. And first thing, to use record API, you need to import update record method from Lightning UI record API. So this method will gives us the power to update the records, and on click of save, we have seen we'll get this draft values, which all the fields we have created. So let's start writing the save handle. So on click of save, we're gonna call the update method, update record, but update records update one record at a time. So let's first create an array of fields. For that, I'll say event dot detail dot draft values, that those values that is coming under the draft values. We'll use a slice method to generate a new copy of the objects that we are getting arrays, and we'll loop around those values. So this thing will gives us a new copy, because array and object work as a reference, so we don't want to update the actual values. That's why we are using the slice method here over the splice. And once we get the data, a new copy of data, on that data will run the loop, map loop, that will take the each value, we say it as a draft, and within that we'll create in a format of fields. So we'll say fields equal to object dot assign. Object dot assign is a way to create a new object. And when you say object dot assign and you just pass this empty bracket, this creates a new object. But if you pass another parameter, so what it will do is it create a new object and assign those values to that object. So we are saying whatever the each value that is coming, from these draft values, just create a new object for that and assign it to fields. And in return, we are saying return each fields as a fields. So I can use it as a fields like this, or I can use a shorthand notation like this. So it returns a new array of object, and to store that new array of object, we'll use const record inputs. So map always returns array of an object, uh, not array of object, but it always returns something. And to save or to hold that return, we are using that record input property. So now we have a record input that has all the array of objects or fields. So suppose if we added first name and last name, so this record input has two object fields, one for first name and one for last name. Okay, so for better understanding, let me console this as well so that you get a better idea. We'll print that what record inputs is holding. Now once we get what all the inputs we have updated, we need to call the update record method. As update record method only handle one record at a time. So again we'll use the loop, and this time again we'll use the map because this is a asynchronous approach, and when we run the asynchronous approach we'll get the promise and we'll store all the promises. For that we'll say promises record inputs dot map. So we'll run the loop over the all input record inputs. It will take record input as individual field, and we'll call the update record, and we'll pass the each object to the update record. So this update record will take the each record input. For first name one field, last name as second field. So like this we'll loop it, and it returns us an array of promises, and those array we gonna store it in the promises. And once we have all the promises, we'll call a method promises dot all. P is caps here, that is promise dot all. So what this gonna do is this all will run once all the promise are resolved. It means all the updations are completed. Then this promise all is return the success, and to hold that success we use the then method. So then is basically used to resolve the promise, and once all the promise means all the updation is completed, you will get some result. You can call this as a result, and once the result is available, you want to do something, you can do it here. And if it fails, then you can say error, and you can write your error logic here. It's a catch method, so once it fails you can handle this everything here. Let's this time add some toast message that says record updated successfully or failed. So in LWC we also have the show toast event, and that you have to import from lightning platform show toast event, and I hope I have written it correctly. So once the show toast event is imported, let's dispatch that when the updation is successful. So we'll say this dot dispatch event will trigger that show event, And to create the show event, you have to define new show and your properties. Or there is another way we can create a reusable method here called show toast. Says in most of my project I follow this approach. Pass this, and this method usually takes our title. That's gonna be the title, and message. That's gonna be the message, and variant. That's gonna be the variant. If there is no variant, it means it's success. And this message will receive title, message, and variant. And now we're gonna reuse this method on success as well as on error. So once our updation is success, our title will be success. And let me make S capital. So we'll say success. Message will show contacts updated, and variant if will not pass, it will take success, so we not need to worry. And when it fails, we'll say error creating record. And for message, we'll get the message in the error dot body dot message, will pass the same message. And variant will say error. So variant is the property that defines the color of your toast. If it is error, it is in red form. If it is success, it's in the green form. Okay, let's recap quickly what we have done here. So on click of save, we'll get all of our draft values. Draft values is nothing, all the fields that we have edited there. And then we'll create a copy of all the draft values using the slice. Slice is an immutable method, so it means it always generates a new copy. It not update the actual data. And to the draft values, we run the loop and generate the records in the specific format. And the format that is understand by update record, that is fields colon the property. I'll show you what the why we created this format once. I'll print it here, and that format take individually by the update record, and it update that record. So each call will send us a promise, that all promise will be stored in the const promises. It's an array of promises. And then promise all will take care of all the promises once all the update. Promise means the service call runs successfully or failure. So promise is something like something will happen. It can be a fail or it can be a pass. But when we say promise.all make sure all the updations are successful. And once that all successful is done, then it comes to our then method, and it shows the toast message. So let's go and deploy this. So now the component is deployed. Let's go to our org, refresh the page again. I'll keep my debugger open. So now we refresh the page. Let's go and start editing it. To Brad, we'll say Brad 1. To Martin, we'll say Martin 1. And I'll keep my debugger open. I'll go to console. First, I'll hit save, and it shows us contact updated. And this is the format of our input record that is understand by our update record method, so that's why we run that first loop. So it takes the input in the format of fields and an object. Then object creates takes the property that has been updated and the record ID. That's why I printed this. Now we first fetch the data, then we build the inline data table, inline editing data table. Third we have done is update the records. But you have observed here, like when we update the record, the yellow part is still there. It means the draft values are still there, and we haven't changed anything here. So let's first clear this updated value. Okay, I mean the draft values, and we'll say when the updation is done. Let's clear our draft values to an empty array. Okay, let's save and deploy source to again. So the component has deployed. Let's go back to our org, refresh the page again. So now I have my data back. Let's change this Brett 1 to 2 and homes to 1 and Martin to 2. Anything, it's just a random thing I'm picking up right now. So these three fields are there. If I click save, so now you can see that contact is updated successfully. That yellow highlight is not coming now. It means the draft values are clear. And third thing, it's still holding the previous value, not showing the updated value because we haven't updated it. So now we have come to the point for which we build this lecture, that is refresh the component data without page refresh. So that was our third topic, how to refresh record without page refresh, how to refresh records without page refresh. So let's go to our org back and try to achieve this. So to achieve this functionality, we have another method or property, you can say, that is refresh apex, that we are importing from Salesforce apex. And so when we want to refresh, so we want to refresh our component once the updation is done. We Our updation is done within this, then once we clear our draft values. And to do this, within the promise, you need to enter return refresh apex. You need to call that method, and in that method you need to pass the reference. So reference here is when you fetch the data using wire, and once the data is returned, you save the data in the property, that is the reference. So in this case, our reference is this dot contact. So it should always be the first property that hold the data. So if I talk about function, so in wire as a function, if I convert the same thing to the function for your better understanding, suppose this is a function now here, and function will take two property, data and value. Okay, so if you want to achieve this thing with a function, you need to store, you don't need to destructure it, store it in a result, and then you say you are holding the result in result, and then you are doing, give me a second, I'll explain you what I'm doing here. if we try to achieve the same thing with the wire as a function, then you create the function, then hold whatever the result is coming as a single property, assign that property to contact result. So the first property to which you are assigning the result is your reference for the refresh apex. So now if I want to up, refresh my call, I need to pass this reference to the refresh apex, not the data or not the value. Okay. Similarly, in property, you just pass the reference that we have this dot contact. And if we talk about imperative method, there you don't need this refresh apex, because in imperative method you call the method again. So that will refresh your data again. So now we have added the refresh apex. So once your data is updated, refresh apex gets called and it update our data automatically. So once refresh apex called, it automatically call this method and the updated data comes to the contact. So let's deploy this component now. Now component is deployed. Let's go back to our org, refresh the page. So this time we'll go from the bottom. I'll say John as Salesforce and Jones as Troop. So the draft values are highlighting now. And let's click the save. I'll close the debugger. And now I click the save. It's update the data. It call the contacts updated. And now you can see we have the updated data in the table without that yellow highlight. It means the draft is clear and it's the saved data. So our refresh happening so quickly, and we don't need to refresh the page to see the updated data. And this is also our complete demo of this refresh apex demo. So you have seen how easy it is to achieve this scenario, and it's always a recommended way to refresh your data, because asking a user to refresh the browser is a bad user experience, and this gives us a freedom to refresh our data so easily. So this is for the today's video, and if you guys have any doubt or any questions, you can ask me in the videos comment. And yes, that's it for today. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.